we need to talk about this. This is the TTI Combat from Canic, built-in compensator, fluted barrel, aggressive backstrap, super awesome trigger, and even an extended magazine that comes with it in the box, right? But I don't want to talk about this particular gun. I want to talk about guns like this, guns that have the built-in compensator and a lot of race gun features that you're like, dang, that's a cool gun. I wonder if I can run it in competition. I've never done a competition before. Is this a good gun for that? We're going to answer that question today in a podcast format. And to do that, I had to reach out to my competition buddy, David from the Humble Marksman channel. He's a master level competition shooter, and he's really, really good. We're not just talking about this gun. We're talking about guns like the Smith & Wesson Carry Comp, that also compensated. Is the compensator thing on guns, is it worth your time as a self-defense shooter? Is it worth your time as a competition shooter? Are these guns, do they even qualify for the divisions that you want to try to compete in? Or are these guns going to get you completely smoked in the USPSA competitions? That's the questions that we're trying to answer. We're going to take the first 15 minutes of my podcast that we did with David the Humble Marksman. We're going to post it here. And then the rest of it, I think it's like 40, 50 minutes. We're going to post it on the Gun Club Radio YouTube channel. And that's the podcast channel. And you guys can go watch it there. That said, I think the first 15 minutes really handles a lot of the important questions. So let's dive into it. I'm excited. Thank you so much. And let's go. David, the Humble Marksman, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Dude, I'm doing good. Thank you for being here. I know you heard the intro. Let's dive into it, man.
Well, for sure. So I guess keying off of the competition compensator, I guess we'll start with compensators.
Yeah.
For people who are kind of new to the handgun space, they think the compensator on a pistol goes back like maybe 10 years. The Roland Special dude deploys overseas in an elite, tier 1 unit with this compensated Glock. And, it kind of sets the world on fire, and we start getting red dots milled on slides and stuff like that. That's a warmed over idea from the competition space from 20 years prior. Like compensators and red dots on pistols is originally started, I think it was in the 1990 or 1991 USPSA Nationals, when Jerry Barnhart showed up with a Tasco scope on a 1911 pistol. And at the time, compensators go back even further than that. Like they started as kind of like barrel weights, and then they became kind of like ported barrel weights, and then they became like true compensators. And, fast forward to like 2015 with the Roland Special, all the cool guys on Instagram are starting to, show up with these highly customized Glocks. Cause, 2015, there were some good options, but not a bunch of great options quite like we have today in the handgun space.
Yeah.
And so everybody's kind of working those things over. All the manufacturers are now fully on board. I think it started with Springfield Armory selling the Hellcat RDP, was the first like production comped gun that you could buy off the shelf.
Shoot, I've had guys in the last 2-3 years asking about the RDP. Like, hey, is it good? Like, should I get that one? Yeah.
It was great at the time. I think the understanding of how to make a compensator with work with a wide variety of ammunition has advanced beyond kind of what the RDP was. Still a fantastic gun, shoots great, don't get me wrong, but like now we're milling them so it looks like it's made with one piece with the slide, and compensator designs have changed, so we're just getting more effective compensators. And so fast forward to that is, I mean, when you look at a company that's having to release a compensated handgun, they're releasing it to the lowest common denominator, which is the exact opposite of the philosophy of kind of a race gun with a compensator,
right?
Which is like a very narrow operating band. You're not just setting up a gun, you're setting up the ammunition that's going to work with it, so that, you have a very specific operating window for how the gun is supposed to work based on the ammo it is. But I mean, somebody making guns at scale doesn't necessarily have the luxury of being able to be like, it's only ever going to eat this one specific load of ammunition that's, plus or minus 30 feet per second. So we know how much gas is coming out. It has to be for like everything from, right. I mean, when SIG is doing design validation on their compensated guns, one of the rounds that they use for design validation to make sure it works is like frangible, like 95 grain frangible ammo, which is like high velocity, a lot of gas, and it ends up like choking a lot of guns in compensator design. So they get it to work with 95 grain frange, they get it to work with 147 subsonics, and kind of everything in the middle tends to work, but it's not optimized. And
Right.
now we're getting into shooters buying these sophisticated guns that they don't understand, like how the gun is actually working. So they're not necessarily buying the ammo that kind of optimizes the system and how it kind of plays well. So, they throw ammo at a gun, which is a system with the ammo, and they're not able to get the gun to perform. Or, another thing is with a compensator on a gun, it punishes limp wristing in a way the gun without the compensator wouldn't. So dudes with compromised skill are getting, some issues, and they'll swear up and down in the comment section that it's not a shooter related issue. It never is, apparently. But that's a lot of times what it is. Sometimes the guns don't work, like that happens. It's,
Right.
Sig Sauer had a bunch of bad extractors on the fuse when they launched it, and they're having to RMA some bad extractors, which isn't good, but they're
Yeah.
taking care of it. And, other brands
Kudos to
have had
them.
issues as well.
Kudos
Yeah,
to
I
them.
mean, it's a mechanical product, and there's a lot of parts coming from a lot of sources. And even if the spec on the part is correct, and the ones that they test are correct, they can't test every single part. So the
Right.
ones that are just out of spec are going to have problems, and that's kind of what happens when you manufacture
Right.
at scale. Is some bad ones are going to make it out into the wild sometimes.
And to be very fair with them, and I don't want to kill your train of thought, most of these manufacturers can't produce all the parts going into their gun. So as they're coming in
Oh no,
from their suppliers, they can't QC everything, and something will come through
right.
eventually.
Or when they test fire, they're test firing a different brand of ammunition where
Yeah.
they can't test fire it with every single round that you could possibly put through it. I mean, Daniel Defense had issues with a certain specific type of ammo that
Mm-hmm.
led to keyholing in the rifling in their initial barrels, and they're making good on that as well. So I mean, like everybody,
Interesting.
when you manufacture at scale, is eventually going to get into problems.
Right.
But those problems, when you have a compensated handgun, you're really opening the door for a lot of issues potentially. And I mean, we see it. I mean, the Canic TTI is
Right.
one that has been having issues. The one that I had issues with recently was the Smith and Wesson Carry Comp,
Which
which
I was very excited for. That thing is
yeah, it
beautiful.
looks awesome. It's the best
Yeah.
looking handgun I think anybody's made in a while, but
Right.
it's it was not very exciting when I actually went to go shoot it.
Which is such a bummer because specifically with the TTI, and I want to very quickly address some of the guys who have been leaving comments, very upset that their experience was sullied when they spent $1,000 or more on their TTI Combat, took it out to the range, and they've been shooting for 10, 15, 20, 30, sometimes more years, and the gun just isn't running for them for one reason or another. I know we actually had the marketing manager for Canic address some of the issues and say like, hey, we recommend this, and please don't limp wrist because the gun will fail if you
Yeah.
do that. And a lot of people didn't take that well. But
Yeah.
based on what you're saying, that definitely could be part of it, if not an actual issue.
Oh, 100%. Basically, the more optimized the product becomes, the more issues you are going to run into with less than optimum ammo and less than
Mm-hmm.
optimum shooters. I mean, and another thing that people conflate in the comment section, like it doesn't matter how long you've been around guns if you haven't been pushing to improve and develop skill. Because I've watched a guy who was a retired policeman choke a Wilson Combat 1911, beautiful gun, blame the ammo every step of the way, and it was 100% him riding the safety. Like he was not putting his thumb on the safety. And so what would happen in recoil, he would bump the safety on, causing
Yeah.
the slide to slow down just enough to cause it to fail to feed.
Yeah.
And he swore up and down that it was the ammo. And I'm sitting to his support side watching him do this. And I tell him exactly what's happening. And he gets angry and tells me what time it is and how he's retired LEO and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, well, you must not have carried a single action when you were an LEO because you don't know how to shoot it. And it shows.
And that's extremely fair. The first time I shot was it a Jericho or something? I can't remember the exact gun. I had a lot of issues, and I'm just like, oh, that's weird. I've been shooting at a decent level for a little bit. Why am I struggling? Oh, it's because I don't really understand the manual arms and what it really means to control this gun, where to put my thumbs to make sure I'm not causing issues. And different guns have safety on, safety off in different ways. And if you don't understand that, you're going to fail. At least
I'll give
in
you a
my
great
experience.
example of that.
Go ahead.
I shot a Desert Eagle in a USPSA match, and I had
I saw
put
that.
like 30 rounds through the thing. Didn't
You're a
know how to grip
maniac.
it because like it's not very ergonomic.
No.
And I was trying to get as high as possible on it with my support hand, and in recoil, my thumb hit the takedown button, and the recoil is stout enough to where the lever rotated and the barrel popped off the front of the gun, and it started trying to come
Whoa.
apart.
Are you
Yeah,
kidding?
yeah.
During a match?
So halfway through the stage, like the barrel comes off the front of the gun, and I get stopped by the safety officer because my barrel's hanging off the front of the gun. And that's a good example of me. And, I'm a pretty accomplished shooter, but I don't know how to shoot Desert Eagles really well. And I induced a malfunction of the gun coming apart.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it can happen to anybody, but like not apparently not anybody in the comment section. And
Right.
looking in the mirror when the gun is having an issue is never apparently part of the solution. Like the product's just supposed to work
Yeah.
regardless of the shooter, regardless of the ammo they're putting through it, regardless of the condition of the firearm. Because like the other thing about compensated firearms is like slide velocity is everything. And so
Mhm.
the like, I never clean my Glock guys take that same mentality forward onto a compensated pistol, which needs slide velocity to work.
Mhm.
And they don't clean it, they don't lube it, and the slide slows down and the gun starts to choke. And it's the gun's fault, not their fault.
Right. I
So
mean,
it's
I guess it's kind of like
tough.
a car, right? If you start tuning it to a certain level and you screw something up, the whole system's going to, fall apart. I do maybe briefly want to touch on because, Shadow Systems, I know you guys
Mhm.
have had a working relationship for a while in regards to you reviewing guns and whatnot. They've famously said like, hey, we need our break-in period. Please do not judge the gun on the first 100 rounds or so. Please give it the break-in period. And not all the handguns have required that from every single unit. But there's a lot of people who are like, listen, if the gun doesn't run every round out the box, as soon as I take it out the box, literally in the range at the gun store, then I don't want it. Yet you've been very vocal about, hey, higher quality guns with tighter tolerances. Can you explain that for the layman? Can you explain it for me who doesn't quite understand what you mean?
Yeah. So first and foremost, my last little like tirade, some of these people were probably rolling their eyes and saying he's just beating up on me, the end user. That's not true. I'm just saying, as part of the troubleshooting process, always look in the mirror first and fix what you can fix without screwing with the gun, because that's usually easier.
Mm.
Diagnose your problems, try and shoot it one-handed and see if taking your support hand off the gun fixes it. And if that's the case, your support hand's the problem. If you're still getting issues, try shooting it with your left hand with no other hand on the gun, and see if you're still getting issues, to see if it's your right hand hitting something on the gun that it's not supposed to. And once you're confident both of those, and then choke up on the gun and really lean into it hard and shoot it, with very stiff wrists, like flex your entire arm so there's no way that there's a potential for limp wristing, and bear into the back of that gun like you're pressing up on a bench press. And if that doesn't fix the issue, then start looking at the gun. That's all. That's the whole tirade, is basically just saying fix what you can fix with yourself and then fix the gun. So jumping into the break-in period now.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but that's the video. That's what we're gonna do here. And if you want to watch the full conversation, the additional 20 minutes, that's going to be over on the Gun Club Radio YouTube channel. Hopefully you found it enjoying, educational, edifying, maybe. And if you have made it this far, type in Canic, and that'll encourage me to get that review done for the TTI Combat sitting behind me. Thank you guys so much. And if you are interested in hearing David's thoughts on what gun you should buy, if you maybe have 500 or even $1,000 to spend on a gun, and you were like, hey, I want it to be able to be useful in competition shooting, but also a practical gun, definitely go and watch the rest of the video, because we talk about a few things, including why SIGs are actually some of the most accurate handguns on the market. And I'm not a SIG guy, but according to science, SIGs are super accurate. So let's go over there, check it out, and see what you see.